Palestinians could have had a state now for 23 years had Yasser Arafat not walked away from the deal that her husband was attempting to craft.
Could the Palestinians have had a state by now? That's what Hilary Clinton thinks. But here's Norman Finkelstein to set the record straight.
You agree with that assessment. What does she get wrong there?
Well, she gets everything wrong, and I'm going to try to explain why. I do know the details, and I hope the listeners will forgive me for going into the details. There have been four basic issues to try to resolve this conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, okay? Issue is, number one, borders. Where should the borderline be drawn between Israel and the Palestinians?
What are the borders of Israel? Does anyone know? Genuine question, because I've seen different maps and different claims. If you want people to recognise a country, presumably you need to tell them what they're recognising.
Palestinians accepted the position of the international community. The borderline should be drawn where it was before the June 1967 war. That is, the whole of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza, would form an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. The Palestinians accepted the position of the international community. All the legal bodies in the world, the International Court of Justice, all the political bodies, the UN General Assembly, everybody accepted the border should be what's called the pre-June 1967 border, or the whole of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and Gaza would be the Palestinian state side by side with Israel. Israel rejected that position. Israel wanted a part of the West Bank. In its last offer, it wanted approximately 8% of the West Bank. So it rejected the international community's position. Number two, under international law, East Jerusalem belonged to the Palestinian state because under international law, it's inadmissible to acquire territory by war. Israel acquired the East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza in the course of the 1967 war. It had no legal title to East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. Israel rejected that position of the international community. It said it wanted parts of East Jerusalem. Number three, there's the question of the settlements that Israel has built in the occupied Palestinian territories. Approximately now 700,000 settlers, illegal settlers under international law in the West Bank. All of those settlers are illegally in the West Bank. Right now, as we speak, engaging in a low level, at this point, ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. Israel wanted to keep under its sovereignty approximately 80% of those settlers. And finally, there's the question of the Palestinian refugees and their descendants since 1948. Israel said that it would not allow any of those refugees to return under what's called the right of return, the international law, which says refugees have the right to return to their homes after the cessation of hostilities. Israel said no. Now, on all of those questions, borders, Jerusalem, settlements, refugees, on all of those questions, the Palestinians were willing to make concessions.
An interesting question about the refugees. These are the descendants of the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who fled or were driven out in 1948. These hundreds of thousands are now in their millions, children and grandchildren of those refugees. And under international law, they have the right to return. I wonder, would they want to return if it meant going and living in what is now Israel as an Arab Israeli with Israeli citizenship? I remember being in refugee camps in the West Bank, and on the wall they would have slogans like Haifa, we are returning. Haifa being the town that their parents or grandparents came from. Haifa is now inside Israel proper. I wonder, would these refugees want to go and live in Israel and be Arab Israelis? Of course, the Israeli side don't want that to happen because it's seen as a demographic threat. It would be a demographic disaster if everyone with the right to return did return. The nation would lose its Jewish majority.
In the year 2000, President Clinton put forth what were called the parameters, December 2000, parameters for resolving the conflict. All of those parameters required concessions from the Palestinians on the basis of international law. None of Clinton's parameters required concessions from Israel on the basis of international law. Now, I want the listeners to hear the bottom line. In January 2001, both the Israeli side and the Palestinian side accepted what were called the Clinton parameters with reservations. Both sides said, we accept with reservations. It is factually untrue. President Clinton, who's an extremely smart guy with a voracious intellectual appetite, he's unfortunately also an exceptional liar. And in his memoir, which I read, he simply lied about what happened to his parameters that he put forth in December 2000.
I did not lie about my parameters.
And Hilary Clinton, who is apparently quite smart also, as smart as her husband, I'm not sure, but no question, a very smart woman. She is also an inveterate to the point of pathological liar.
Oh, a lying politician, surely not. Let me know in the comments, why do you think the Clintons were so biased in their mediation in the Middle East?